Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have another cool preview for you from a brand called Reverie Watches. They're established back in 2014. They're located out of Singapore, and pretty much ornate guilloche dials and elegant designs form the backbone of their design language. Now, this particular model is a real departure from what they're known for. This is, of course, a dive watch. Some key common characteristics and design language when you're looking for a dive watch. You're going to want, of course, water resistance, typically with some type of screw down crown. You're going to want something that's tough, legible, with a dive time bezel, and a diver's extension is always nice if on bracelet. This is known as a Reverie Diver, and really what it does is it marries that elegant design language with the utilitarian nature of a dive watch. So this thing is really meant to be capable of withstanding the rigors of underwater exploration, while having some of those cool kind of ornate dial designs and aesthetics, which I think is pretty cool and quite different. Now these are going to go for $500 direct, but you can get them for $375 on the pre-order with the early bird discount. And I think it's an interesting proposition. You know, obviously this is just a pre-production prototype. It's been through the rigors of the review cycle here, and I'm kind of catching it on the end of that chain. But I gotta say, it's quite a compelling package, and it's not for any one element. It's not like just the dial as a selling point, or just the bezel, or just the K-shape, or just the bracelet, or just the clasp. It's really an amalgamation of all of these different elements that they offer within this really interesting package that I don't think you just don't find everywhere. So I think that's what makes this watch very different. It doesn't have that one kind of wow factor, like statement aspect of it. It's just something that I looked at, and it kind of grew on me, and then the more I found out about the watch, I think the more it interested me. So I'm excited to kind of share this one with you guys and get your thoughts. So let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. All right, now as you can see, pretty eye-catching dial there, but I think in this deep green color, it definitely kind of that British racing green. It somehow balances a very sedate, downplayed color aspect there, but then at the same time it's actually quite bold and pops a bit, especially with that pop of yellow with the color play there. Now this is a nice 40mm case with a 12.3mm height and only a 42.6mm lug to lug, so this thing is minimal footprint on the wrist, which is really exciting, like surprisingly good. That's beyond kind of what Seiko does, and the way they can shrink divers on the wrist is pretty amazing. So, of course, when you take a look at this, you do see that it is a full stainless steel here. It does have a flat sapphire crystal with an inner AR coating. It has a 120 click unidirectional stainless steel dive bezel. Very nice action. There's a little bit of back play, but I'm loving the clicks on this. It's very smooth, but does give you that great tactile feedback. And even through the gloves here, the coin edging on this is a very nice, experience with your hands, which is great. And then, of course, the crown has some really great knurling there. To the crown, it actually does have it's signed screw down, of course. And you can see now this really nice polished bevel here, which does add a bit of class to the case, and it just is a way for the manufacturer to flex a little bit and let you know that they have some high precision capabilities. And this thing, obviously, again, it's been through the ringer and through the review gauntlet, if you will, so it's not looking as pristine as what the finished product is going to look like, but I gotta say, it definitely has good bones to start with. Now, as far as the case back goes, it is a display case back with some nice etching around, and then the rotor itself is quite nice as well, as you can see. If I can get the camera to, there you go. It has some really nice patterning done on it, very lovely from that standpoint. Of course, it wants to focus on this really nice trick Rolex glide lock style clasp. But there you go. So as you can see, really nice. I think it adds a little bit of character as well. And then, of course, that detailing I think is quite handsome, and kind of ties into the dial in that it just has those kind of ornate features with the patterning and adding a bit of texture and just some three-dimensionality to the overall look. Now, if you guys are fans of the Rolex sub, you'll recognize this. Very, you know, much like a Rolex Glide Lock from that standpoint. So you take it off, you can move this back and forth essentially, and there's different places along the way, and you can lock it in. So pretty nice. Definitely works, does the job. But this is a prototype, so I'm sure it'll be a little bit more refined on the final product, but even for a prototype, I think this is pretty well put together. Obviously fully milled and whatnot. And then we get to, just to point out some nice details about this dial. Of course, you do have applied indices, no date. You get that kind of 2-layer dial there in that nice moss green colorway. Polished hands with the painted second hand. You do have Swiss Superluminova BGW9 and C3, so you're going to see this has a bicolor lume, so you're going to get some nice contrast in the dark, which is really great. And then you do have a 20mm lug width, although it does flare out a bit. It tapers down to 16mm. Ooh. Ooh. Excuse me. Ooh. Thank you. I'm sure some of you said bless you or gesundheit, so thanks for that. You guys are always great in the comments whenever I accidentally sneeze. So, ooh, it's maybe I'm not. Okay, I'm not done. Okay, I'm done. Three is the magic number. All right, so it does taper down to 16mm on the link, and then 18mm on the clasp itself. So really nice from that standpoint. But let's actually get this piece on wrist and see how it wears. Okay, as you can see on my 7¼ wrist, this wears really well. And for a 40mm watch with a really tiny lug to lug, I think it actually doesn't wear super small. I think it actually looks pretty good. And then even with some lens distortion from getting up close, it's going to appear a little bit larger, but not oversized. And even like this, I don't feel this is like super undersized, which it has a lot of features that really shrink things down, like the 2 layers on the dial, also having the steel bezel there. It's something that does play with the dimensions and shrink things down, but somehow it actually doesn't feel undersized. So props to them from a design perspective for pulling that off. One other thing that I probably didn't mention is that this actually has push pin connectors. So although it definitely has the you know, Rolex oyster style linking and clasp there, the pins you know, are there versus screw pins. So definitely wanted to mention that for those of you that were probably wondering. Now on the wrist, guys, you know, again, that's really modestly sized with a very refined contouring and tapering, which I dig. Obviously the case has a nice taper to it, and then that flows right into the bracelet and that really classic taper. So really cool from that standpoint. As far as model variants go, guys, you know, you're gonna get this in a navy blue. There's also a green moss, a warm gray, and a burgundy, pretty much with your choice between a diver bezel, as you see here, or a 12-hour traveler's bezel. So really nice, and as you can see, wears quite well. But with that said, let's actually get this piece back on the table for some lume shots and low light transition, and then also wrap up some closing thoughts. Okay guys, we'll go ahead and hit the lights here. As you can see, really nice lume, and you can actually see the contrast when comparing the handset to the actual indices there with the BGW9 versus the C3. I think it looks really good, and you know, obviously it's quite legible. I think there's actually some faint glow that's coming off of the bezel that you can't really see. Let me see here. Let's actually get some low light transition going so you guys can get an idea of what this looks like in less than optimal lighting. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. While I have partial low light transition, maybe I can hit it with a little black light to expose some. No, maybe it's not in the bezel. I could have sworn there's a very faint glow coming off. Oh, you can see it a little bit. Yeah, there's a very faint glow. Look at that. At the 30 and 20 there. Interesting. Very, very interesting from that standpoint. So there's a very faint glow that comes off of that bezel. That's something that you know, we'll have to see how that goes from a production perspective. This is of course the prototype. I actually didn't notice that until right now. But one thing I like to do is of course look at this, and this is really where this dial is going to shine in that transitional lighting. You get a better idea of how this is going to render as far as the colors and the textures go, and also get an idea of that brushing and see, you know, how uniform it is. And as you can see, although this is a pretty well-worn review sample here, there are quite a few little scratches, but generally the light is gliding over quite uniform over that brushing, so that's a nice telltale sign of quality. And then of course look at the way the dial plays, how that outer ring can really grab the light and just light up, while that center guilloche dial plays more of a high contrast affair, and you can get nice dark blacks and deep greens with some nice really high bright hues and highlights coming off of it. So really cool from that standpoint, I gotta say, and quite handsome and quite legible. Even in right here in kind of this midway lighting, you could still see, you know, where that 12 o'clock is and get a nice idea for orientation purposes. All right, so you know, as far as comparable models go, probably not too much to jump in here, guys. But they're more comparable for the fact that there's divers that are out here that are similarly spec'd, but this just doesn't look like any of them. So I got to give them props for that, with the originality and really offering something kind of special. And I know that maybe the bracelet and clasp combination is the most original, maybe the case isn't the most original, maybe even the dial and handset. Oh, actually the dial and handset are pretty original. For me, again, it's really the way that these different elements come together. No single element for me is a huge selling point on this watch, but somehow the way everything kind of comes together and marries up, and that kind of design synergy that they're able to achieve is, I think, is what drew me in. For me, the bottom line, this is a really stylish and unique diver option that straddles a line between diver and kind of general purpose sports watch. Like, this is something, especially if you put on that 12-hour bezel insert, right? Or I shouldn't say bezel insert, it's the whole bezel itself is solid steel. If you choose to go with that 12-hour bezel, it kind of turns this into a general purpose sports watch, and a real traveler's kind of timepiece that just happens to be ultra capable, having that 200 meters of water resistance. So I'm digging that, and yeah, this is just kind of an interesting one, and I'm kind of happy that the company reached out to kind of put it on my radar so that I could get a look and show you guys. So definitely let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do hit like. And if you have, wait a minute, did I even cover the movement that's in this bad boy? I know you guys saw it, but I don't think I mentioned it, and I'm sure it was in the beginning of the video. This is a Miyota 9039, so it's a no date, but it's a no date movement, which is a nice touch. So sorry if I skipped that, or maybe I'm just retreading it now. But if you like the video, please do hit like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Definitely let me know what you guys think in the comments below, though. I'm looking forward to kind of hearing your feedback. Thanks, guys.